This is the analysis of the step forward lunge for the midterm practical. So looking at the normal movement description of a front forward lunge, the starting position, we're going to want to stand upright, feet hip width apart, and maintain a neutral spine with an engaged core. Upon the execution of this movement, we're going to want to take one step forward with one leg, keeping it 2 to 3 feet in front of us, and then lowering our back knee toward the ground until both knees are going to be at approximately 90-degree angles. Then we're going to keep the front knee aligned with our toes to avoid an excessive forward movement past them. Then pushing from the front foot to return back to starting position. The posture and technique of this exercise, we're going to want to make sure that we're maintaining an upright torso to prevent excessive lean forward, and then ensuring an even weight distribution between the front and the back legs. We're really going to want to watch our knees to make sure that we're not having them cave in or valgus. The step forward lunge serves for multiple purposes. It's going to strengthen our quads, hamstrings, glutes, and core, as well as improve our balance and single leg stability. Additionally, it'll enhance our functional movement patterns, which are necessary for daily activities and sports performance. Biomechanically, this movement is going to involve eccentric control during the descent, concentric force production during the push-off, and then isometric stabilization at the midpoint. Proper execution is going to ensure efficient force transfer, joint stability, and then reduced injury risk. So there's 4 different phases to consider when you're looking at the front forward step. So the first one is going to be your initial contact, which is going to be the forward step. This is where the leading foot moves forward and makes contact with the ground. Then you have the eccentric descent, which is going to be our lowering phase, in which the knee lowers toward the ground while the front knee bends. Then the concentric descent, which is the push-up phase. The front leg is going to push up from the ground and return back to standing. And then the last final stage is that return to standing position, in which the body moves back to the initial position it started from. Some similarities is each phase requires core engagement and balance control. Both descent and ascent involve hip and knee flexion and extension. They just have opposite roles. The difference is going to be that eccentric descent is going to require some controlled force absorption, while concentric descent requires force production for propulsion. In this chart, it's going to show us the 3 target muscles, the quadriceps femoris, the gluteus maximus, and the gluteus medius. This chart is going to go over the origin, insertion, and actions of each of these muscles. So here we can see the synergist and stabilizer muscles that are involved in this exercise, and then each joint and what their type and what their primary movement is during the lunge. So looking at different types of muscle contractions, we're starting off with the eccentric phase, in which muscles are going to lengthen under tension to control movement. This phase occurs as we lower into the lunge, allowing for a controlled descent while resisting gravitational pull. As we reach the lowest position of the lunge, muscles switch to isometric contractions, meaning that they hold tension without movement. Finally, the concentric phase occurs when we push off the ground to return to the starting position. The muscles are going to shorten to generate force. In this chart, it shows what is occurring in each muscle group during each phase. So the way that we read it, in the quadriceps muscle group, it's going to control knee flexion in the eccentric phase. It's going to hold the knee position at the lowest point in the isometric phase. And then in the concentric phase, it's going to extend the knee to returning position. When performing a step forward lunge, understanding the length, tension, and force length relationships is key to optimizing strength and efficiency. During the descent, the quadriceps and the glutes are at mid-range length, allowing for optimal force production. At the bottom position, the hamstrings and hip flexors are stretched, increasing passive tension for stability. However, if muscles are too short or too long, force generation becomes insufficient. For example, tight hip flexors can limit glute activation, reducing the push-off power. According to the force-length relationship, muscle force depends on its length contraction. In the eccentric phase, the quadriceps and glutes lengthen, increasing their force potential. At the bottom, passive tension helps stabilize the position. During the push-off, these muscles shorten, but if they shorten too much, the force production decreases. The key takeaway? The best force production happens when muscles are slightly stretched, but not excessively lengthened, ensuring that both strength and stability occur throughout the movement. So moving on to the force velocity curve, this principle states that slower movements generate higher force, which is ideal for strength training, with faster movements reducing force output, but enhancing speed and power. In the step forward lunge, a slow controlled descent increases strength adaptations, while an explosive push-off improves power output and neuromuscular efficiency. Adjusting movement speed allows for target different training goals. Next, we have the strength shortening cycle, which is essential for energy storage and force efficiency. During the eccentric phase, lowering into the lunge, the quadriceps and the glutes store elastic energy. This energy is briefly held during the transition phase at the bottom of the movement, and then when we push off into the concentric phase, the stored energy is released, enhancing force production. However, pausing too long at the bottom can lead to energy loss, making the push-off phase harder. Finally, we have the active and passive inefficiency, which explain how muscle length affects force efficiency. Active inefficiency occurs when a muscle is too shortened, preventing it from generating full force, such as the rectus femoris is too short during a hip flexion, which will limit the knee extension. Passive insufficiency happens when a muscle is too stretched, making it difficult to contract effectively. Like the hamstrings are overstretched in a deep lunge, reducing to their ability to assist in hip extension. Maintaining a balanced joint positioning helps prevent these issues and ensures optimal force production. Our joints are operating in the sagittal plane, and this is the chart that describes the range of motion needed to fully do the front forward lunge. In addition to joint mobility, muscle properties such as elasticity, extensibility, and contractility play a crucial role in movement efficiency. These properties determine how well muscles store energy, lengthen, and generate force during the lunge. Elasticity refers to the muscle's ability to return to its original length after being stretched. During the eccentric phase, the quadriceps and the glutes store elastic energy, which is then released during the push-off, improving movement efficiency. If elasticity is poor, energy is lost, making the lunge less effective. Extensibility is the muscle's capacity to lengthen safely without damage. In the lunge, hip flexors and hamstrings must lengthen to allow full hip and knee flexion. However, tight hip flexors can restrict hip extension, limiting push-off power and causing compensation movements. If extensibility is reduced, range of motion decreases and strain shifts to other muscles, increasing injury risk. Contractility is the muscle's ability to generate force and produce movement. During the push-off, the quadriceps contract concentrically to extend the knee, while the glutes and hamstrings contract to extend hip, providing the necessary force of upward movement. Weak contractility results in reduced power output, leading to instability and inefficient propulsion. During the descent phase, eccentric muscle contractions control movement against gravity. Torque plays a crucial role here. The quadriceps create knee extension torque, while the glutes generate hip extension torque. Torque is calculated using the equation torque equals force times movement arm, meaning a longer movement arm increases torque, requiring greater muscle activation. Proper positioning ensures efficient force production without excessive strain. In terms of force vectors, there are three key forces acting on the body: gravity, pulling the body down; ground reaction force, which is pushing up from the ground; and then internal muscle forces, which are going to be produced by the quads, glutes, and hamstrings. Gravity increases load during the descent, while GRF provides support for pushing back up. The stronger the push-off, the greater the reaction force, aiding in upward movement. Newton's laws further explain the movement mechanics, as the first law of inertia states that the body resists changes in motion. Deeper lunges require more force to reverse the direction. The second law, acceleration, shows that force is proportional to the mass and acceleration, meaning the stronger muscle contractions lead to more explosive movement. The third law, action and reaction, explains that as we push against the ground, the GRF pushes back, helping lift the body. Friction also plays a role, stabilizing the foot and preventing slipping. Looking at the kinematics, we're operating in the sagittal plane with medial lateral rotation in the joints. The joint actions are going to be listed here on the slide. Torque is a rotational force acting around a joint, essential for joint movement and control. In the lunge, torque plays a major role in hip and knee joints, where muscles generate force to control descent and propel the body upward. The torque equation is torque equals force times the moment arm. In this example, we see that the quads generate 600 newtons of force, and the moment arm is 0.04 meters. So therefore, when we plug that into the equation, we would get 24 newton meters of torque in the knee. You can see a similar example with the hip torque below. Power is the rate at which work is performed. We can see that in this following equation of power equals force times velocity. During the push-off phase, the quads are going to generate 600 newtons of force, and the estimated velocity is 1.5 meters per second. So if we plug this into the equation, we get 900 watts of power in the forward lunge. Okay, let's look at how we can apply these concepts. Poor knee alignment often results in knee valgus, placing extra stress on the ACL and the patellar tendon. A lack of hip stability contributes on both valgus collapse and excessive forward trunk lean, causing lower back discomfort and reducing force production. Limited ankle mobility, especially dorsiflexion, leads to improper knee tracking, increasing stress on the patellar tendon and the quadriceps. Lastly, inefficient eccentric control makes force absorption less efficient, raising the risk of joint impact and potential injury. Addressing these issues is crucial for safe and effective lunges. Lateral band walks are an activation exercise that can be used before lunges. They are a highly effective way to correct the inefficiencies by strengthening the gluteus medius and minimus, which are the muscles responsible for hip stability and proper knee alignment. By targeting these stabilizers, we're reducing the knee valgus and enhancing balance and control during the lunge. As a result, force production becomes more efficient and the risk of hip and knee injuries is going to decrease. Next, the Bulgarian split squat addresses hip stability, knee control, and lower body strength imbalances. By forcing unilateral loading, we can improve balance, coordination, and force distribution between the legs. The exercise specifically strengthens the quadriceps, the glutes, and the hamstrings, enhancing push-off power and the forward lunge. Additionally, better hip stability helps prevent knee valgus and promotes single leg balance, reducing compensation from dominant limbs. To be able to integrate these exercises effectively, we must use a three-phase approach. There's three phases: the activation, strength, and skill phase. So activation phase, lateral bands will work before lunges to ensure hip stabilizers are going to be engaged and prevent valgus. The strength phase, the Bulgarian split squats, are going to develop lower body strength and balance, reinforcing unilateral stability. And the skill transfer phase, slow, controlled, step forward lunges, emphasize proper alignment and eccentric control, allowing for the integration of improvements into functional movement. These are the references. Thanks for watching.